So, continuing on our last discussion that we were having, we are going to talk about LDAP connectivity. Okay, LDAP connectivity with ServiceNow, and we discussed earlier that using import sets, we can get data from outside environment. For example, databases or XML file or Excel file or CSV file, or using JDBC import, stuff like that, right? So the next topic that we are going to talk about today is LDAP connectivity, right? So for that, what I did is I went ahead onto my AWS server, Windows server that I have, and I had to do a little bit of setup here for getting my uh, Active Directory activated here onto this server, right? And after that, what I have done is I went ahead into this Active Directory and added a few users into this Active Directory here into this. And then what we have done is I have also went ahead and added a few systems or computers into this, and we are good to go. We will find out how we can connect it to our ServiceNow instance, and we can get those information out from there. Okay, let me get that here. Where is that option? Just a moment. Mhm. Here is my Active Directory domain system, domains and trust, where we can see that a new domain has been added. My domain is Turasys.com, right? And hang on. Here, my Turasys.com domain, and within that I have users. And if you see within this list of users, I have created few users like this Tanya Avashist and Rahul and Deepak and this way I have created some users into this list, right? Deepak Kumar Rana. I can go ahead and create new users as well. So let's say if I have to create new user here, I'll go ahead and create a new user. And let's say if I want Vinod to be here, Vinod, maybe Vinod Kumar, and I'll go ahead and mention here into this. And for user logon, I'll do V Kumar, right? So V Kumar account is getting created into my Active Directory now, right? So the domain is Turasys, and Turasys/V Kumar is something that we are creating right now for Vinod to log in into the domain, right? And I'll go ahead and set a default password for this guy, and I'll save it. So what happens is a new user, V Vinod Kumar, has been added into this list. Similarly, I have also added this computer here into this list, which is kind of a network computer that I have added into my Active Directory and will be available in here. On the same lines, I have also added this hardware group. So if you see, I have a hardware group in here, and within the hardware group, I have one member, which is Rahul. I can go ahead and add Vinod as well into this group and save it. Now what happens is in hardware group I have two users. Similarly, I have database group in which I have a couple of users, three users, and one more group I had. Software group is there, and in software group I have no user as of now. Let me go ahead and add Vinod to software group as well. Okay, so this is also created in here. So this is on the Active Directory side of it. So the Active Directory administrators do this activity on a daily basis. Whenever a user joins an organization or leaves an organization, they'll use some sort of tool to push data into this Active Directory or come directly and create it here. Depends on how they're doing using it, right? So they'll come and create their users groups inside it, and then they'll relate all those users to each of these groups that are available, populate these data, and keep it here as is, right? Now for different applications, for different authentication that different applications do, they would use this LDAP, they would use this Active Directory for verifying if the user that is trying to log in onto that application is available into this Active Directory or not, right? If the user is available into the Active Directory, they'll allow the user to log in or do that transaction. If not, then the user will not be authenticated. Make sense? Is it okay for you to understand what we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Ram.
It's okay to me.
Okay. Now let's go back onto our ServiceNow instance, right? And within our ServiceNow instance, our objective is that just like we did for import sets and we brought data from our MySQL server the other day, on the same lines, we need to be able to connect to this Active Directory server and fetch data from there. Okay. So for that, it is really simple thing, right? Not too much technical inside it. We just need to get some of the information from the server and we'll be able to do that here. So for that, what you have to do is you have to go here into System LDAP application. System LDAP is where it will, be available, where you can go ahead and create new servers, etc. And within System LDAP, there are a few modules, right? The first module is getting started, which takes you to the docs.servicenow.com, right? Related to LDAP integration. That all the details that you want, you can see it here. And this diagram explains what we are talking about, right? Your database here, there is a mid server in place, and there's a LDAP query being made by ECCQ. Here are your ServiceNow data source, import set, transformation map. When transformation is done, the data is getting pushed to groups table and the users table, right? So this is the LDAP query that you are making, and this is your customer environment, right? This is outside ServiceNow environment that we're talking about, this whole environment here. Okay, so consider this AWS server that I have as a customer environment according to this diagram, right? Now, in certain cases, there would be mid server involved as well, right? But right now, I do not need that mid server because I do not have any firewall in place which is protecting my customer environment from outside world, right? I don't need then mid server right now, right? So I can do without mid server as well, like we are doing here. So this LDAP query, if you see from this data source, this LDAP query is getting done directly. There is no mid server involvement. But this LDAP query that is being made, this is getting made using mid server. So it is showing that there is some sort of firewall, there may be some sort of firewall in place for which you need this mid server to access the items from the customer environment. Okay. Now let's go back. So this is getting started. We just saw, the documentation link. Then we have create new server. So create new server is basically a module that helps you out in identifying an Active Directory server that you have into your customer environment. This is all you have to do here. Create new server. You'll go here and you'll choose the Active Directory type of LDAP server that you have as Active Directory, and you will provide some of the details here. For example, the server name, which would be the name of the server where the Active Directory is configured, right? Uh, and this is an arbitrary name, so this is some identifier that you will identify later, that this is the server that you're pointing to, right? So I'll name it, let's say, TS Active Directory Server or something, Turasys Active Directory Server. So that is going to be the name of the server. Then you have to provide the host name of the server. The host name of the server can come from here. For example, this is the public DNS or host name for my server. What I have done in my LDAP configuration, when we'll go there, I have used that host name inside my server, inside my LDAP servers here to connect to this Active Directory server that I have. So you'll have to use into the same format. So if you have to use your host name, so you'll simply go ahead and, let's say if my host name is ts AD server, something like that. So I'll go ahead and .aws.com, something like that. So I'll do LDAP tsad server.aws.com colon 389. 389 is the default port for Active Directory, right? So you have to preserve that port number here, 389, right? So you'll keep it 389 as is. Then starting search directory. So this is something that you'll have to ask your LDAP administrator. Hey, can you give me this information, DC and DC information? So this is nothing but basically if you go back to your domain that you have set up here, while setup, what happens is, when you give this name to the domain, uh, the the first DC is your domain, which is Turasys, and the second DC is com that you have here. Stuff like that. This is DC. I'm not that much technical about it, but this is some identifier for the AD that we have, distinguished name, right? Distinguished name or something like that. RDN is relative distinguished name, and DC is similarly some name which identifies this server, right? So this information you will have to get and you will have to pass on here into this, right? So these two information as mandatory that you have to pass in, right? Now let's go back. So I have already done that. So in my LDAP servers list, you will see that I have created the Turasys LDAP here by providing all the details. When we save that record, while creating the create new server, we only two information that we passed on is the server URL and the DC-DC configuration. We have done that. Now when we save it, after saving, we have to reopen the record. When we reopen the record, then we'll have to pass on some more information. What other information we need to pass on? First of all, this name comes up as we gave while setting it up. This application is global, which is good. Global because the groups and users tables are into the global application, so having that in place is having global in place is good. So we'll have global here. Then login distinguished name. So you'll have to provide the login name for the Active Directory server that you have. I am using my administrator's account and its password, right? Then starting search directory. So I have used DC-DC configuration, which is DC Turasys and DC equals com. All right. And then if it was a mid server environment, then you will use mid server here. Otherwise, we are good, right? And based upon the information that we pass here and when we save it, this LDAP server URL gets populated here automatically. This is the embedded list that comes up here automatically. All right. So these are all the information that comes up here. Now you can see here it is testing connection. So if all of our information is correct, the test connection will be right, and right, and the connection will be made. Verify server address and port are correct and accessible. This is right. Alright, just 1 minute. I'll have to change this. This value is incorrect here. Now it is connected successfully. Because I had a wrong host name associated, it was showing me that message which is saying that the connection was not successful. I replaced that with the correct host name, and now it is connected successfully. So when it is connected successfully, what we can do is we can go ahead and execute it to get that information out from that, right? So, and when we save this detail, the LDAP OU definition comes here, and groups and users are getting displayed here as well. All right. So in the groups, when I open, you can see that this is pointing to the group table, which is sys user group table that we have. This is the target table for groups, and the users, sys user is the target table here, right? Now, when let's say when I open this groups here, then all the details are coming from the LDAP connection that we have. I can go ahead and by default it comes as the data source. I can see the data source as Turasys LDAP, and the import set table identified for this data source is LDAP group import. Right, so when we go into this data source and when we run this, we import data from that Active Directory. In the LDAP group import table, what will happen is all the groups from my Active Directory, the groups that we have created, will be populated. So if we go here, hang on, source table, and or this is coming from the AD source table. So the target table is sys user group directly. So if I go here, so this is the table where the information will come when we execute that. So we'll go ahead and try and execute it, right? Right now, the latest ones that we have is service desk only. Let's go here, and in the LDAP servers that we have created, we will go and try and execute it. Test connection is correct. This gives me the LDAP listener status. Some of these modules will be specific to the LDAP information. So when I click on it, it is going to give me the status of the LDAP, right? So it is saying that the current connection is active that we have. So this will probably ping the Active Directory server and get the details from there. If you click on browse, right from here, you can browse the Active Directory that you have set up onto your customer environment. And here we can see the LDAP nodes. And within the LDAP node, let's say if I want to go into the users, right, and I expand it here, I'll be able to see all those users that we have set up into our Active Directory, right? So the connection is done. Now you can see that the information from that connection is getting populated here itself. So you can see this Vinod Kumar is coming. We just created that. Tanaya is here. The software group is here. The service desk group is here. Rahul's account is there. Hardware group is there, right? Deepak's account is there, right? So these are the information available right now. If I go back and create a new user again, so let's say if I go here into user and I do create a new user, which is probably a test user, and save it. So we now get a test user here. We will go back and try and browse again. This time the test user should also come into our list. So we'll go ahead, expand this, LDAP nodes, users, and our test user is also here. See this? The test user is also here, and the details about the test user account that we have created is also getting fetched here and getting displayed here inside it. Okay, tuser@Turasys.com is what we created. This is when created, so this is the time. Just now we created it, so this is the time frame for that, and all the details for that user from the Active Directory is getting populated and stored here into this. This is getting displayed. So the connectivity between your ServiceNow instance and between your Active Directory is done now. You can browse through all those elements in here. Even if we go into the hardware group, let's say if I go into this hardware group and let me expand it. Let me see if we can see the group members here. This is not displaying in a much readable format, but we have, see, within the hardware group, the members that we have is Vinod and Rahul. Two members are there into the hardware group. Let's verify that. Vinod and Rahul are two members here into this. Right? So this way, the information is getting exchanged here. So LDAP server, the setup process is pretty easy. You need a little bit of information from the Active Directory administrator. You'll get that information. You'll set that up here into LDAP server. LDAP monitor is a module that will show you the status of the Active Directories that you have set up. Right now I have only one Active Directory set up. There may be a possibility that you have multiple Active Directories set up. All of those Active Directories that you have set up can be displayed here. When you do that, that will be displayed here and you can see those information about the Active Directory. Okay. Data sources is where you will get, what data source is, right? As we have done into import set, so the same extension is here into the system LDAP application as well. So this data source, Turasys LDAP users data source, is of type LDAP, and it is showing you that the import set table for your users is LDAP underscore import. Let me see if that is created. Yes, so that LDAP import is created and I have probably imported it once. So this import set contains those data into it, right? So import set rows and I have one test user imported inside into it, right? So this data source is having this LDAP import set table and is of type LDAP and LDAP target is users, right? So we are targeting the users table in here. And this is the transformation map created here, and within the transformation map you will see that from LDAP import table to the sys user table the data is getting transformed. Now when we are getting the information from the Active Directory, you may see that there is plenty of information that is coming from that. All of those information will not be required at our end, right? Some of these information can be, some of these information cannot be. For example, you can see that these are the fields that we have mapped into this. This is not something that I have done, but by default this mapping comes when you set this LDAP. So the basic information of SAM account name, which is the user name, the user principal name, which is email, UL, which is location, uSource, which is source, uGiven name as first name, and USN as last name, and uTitle as title. These information are coming in here. What we have done is, this is mapped to the target fields from the user table, right? And so that mapping is done. And here are a few transformation scripts that you may see. The transformation script, as we talked about, what you are doing before executing the transformation map, what you are doing after execution of transformation map, etc. So this is doing something in here. So this is doing substring -1, getting target.active false, target.lockout is equal to true. If action equals insert, then ignore equals true. Some of the settings that we are doing before executing the transformation script here. Similarly, some of the scripts are, one is on before, one is on start and one is on complete. So this is basically data cleansing that you are doing before you push that data into your table, into your target table. All right. So if we go into our sys user table, sys underscore user table right now, right, and I'll sort out on the basis of this the current user created, and you can see some of this information is already available in here. The test user, since we loaded this, the T user at Turasys.com test user has come up here, but I still cannot see other users in place. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and import data, and then we'll hit transformation as well. So I'll go here into this and I'll do load all records, and after it is loaded I'll go ahead and execute the transformation map as well. All right, now run transform. So this is my import set 6, and this is my LDAP user import transformation map. So I'll go ahead and execute transform, and transformation is success. We had 586 users. Let me see if we get new users in list. And it looks like yes. So all the users that we had, V Kumar, T Vashist, R Rakesh, and D Kumar, and T user into our Active Directory, all of them have been pushed here into the user table. And you can see all those information. So this, I'm sorry. So this is the user ID that we created into our Active Directory, right? So this V Kumar or T Vashist or R Rakesh, these are created there. The names we gave into the Active Directory, and the email ID was also given into our Active Directory. Now with just one load of data and data transformation, we get all those information in there. So incrementally as well. So let's say if I go here and I create a new user for Shashikant, so I'll go here and create Shashikant, and let's say I keep it as Shashikant V, and I do V Shashikant, and go here and set the user password, complete it, finish it. All right, and if I have to create a new group, so I'll go ahead and create a new group as well, and TS test group. Okay, let's keep it as security group, no worries about that. I'll go here, my TS test group is here. I'll go here and add users into this list. So we'll add Shashikant, okay, and then I'll add Deepak, okay, and then I'll add Rahul, and then I'll add, let's say, Vinod as well. So 4 group members we are adding. So we'll go here, complete it. So this is my test group that we have created, and add a few users into this. Now, first of all, let's go back and try and run the data source one more time. And this is for users, so I'm going to execute it. So I'll go here and do load all records, right? So whatever users that we are having into Active Directory will now be populated in here, and I'll go ahead and run transformation, right? So the new user Shashikant that we have created, next time, after this transformation, that user should go into our users table, right? So we had 590 user. Now let me refresh it, and I have 591. One more user has been added, which is Shashikant V. The way that we created here into Active Directory is getting populated in here. So all our users are getting displayed into our user table, which is fine. But what about group that we created, right? Did we also bring the groups? Let's go ahead and find that out. Sys underscore user underscore group is the table name where we should be able to find out if our users and groups have been brought in here or not. And it looks like the group is here. TS test group is coming up here. We didn't provide any description. The description is not there. The test group is here. We have group members. This is 3 group members right now. It should be 4. So it looks like refresh from LDAP would give us that data. No? Let me do one thing. I'll go here into this LDAP and I'll go into data sources and go into the groups and I'll do load all records. So this way, sys underscore user underscore group. I'll be able to load all the groups that we have into Active Directory here into this, and now I'll go ahead and run this transformation as well. Now right now we are doing it manually, right? You don't have to do it manually, but just for the purpose of demonstration I'm doing it manually. You can always go ahead and schedule it, right? But since we are doing it first time and I'm just demonstrating it, that's the reason I am having it done manually. Now we'll go here and we'll try and refresh the list for the groups and quickly see all these groups that we are seeing here are coming from our Active Directory, RAS and IIS servers. So if you see in the groups, it should be there. Where is the group listing? Domain. Groups. Let's find out. Where is our groups that we wanted to have? Let me search here for name. TS test group. Now the test group has 4 members which came automatically this time because we did that complete run of the data. So this contains Shashi, Vinod, Rahul and Deepak, which is good. Similarly, if we go ahead and find out software group that we created, and I'm yet not sure if we had a software group here as well. So this is ServiceNow software group. This is not the one that we have from there. Show matching database. Let me look into if we got that information there. Import log. Import set 10 was the import set that we fetched, and this contains all these groups: TS test group, cab members, domain controllers, domain users, DNS admins, and hardware, software, database, and service desk. Okay, all these are there in place. Let me reprocess it because I need all those 4 groups as well. Import set rows updated to pending state, which is good. Now I'm going to execute as transform. Are you getting this, what I'm doing? The transformation is complete. There is no error, which means the transformation was a success. So in the groups table, we should now see all the data. This is our service desk, and those two users from service desk coming from our Active Directory that we have. Within service desk, we have two members, Rahul and Tanya Vashisht. Those two members are coming here. Similarly, we will have other groups as well. Let me see, maybe what we have done is in the transformation map we have added coalesce for the group name, and that could be a possible thing. Transform maps for group import. Yeah, see the SAM account name, coalescing is on here, right? Since the coalescing is on, what is happening is this group that we have as software is a group already available into my group table. So it is not getting that new data, this software data pushed again into the table. That's the purpose of coalescing. We have a coalescing on the SAM account name here into the groups table. So it is not pushing that data into the table. While for the other groups that we have created, which is new, like this TS test group or the service desk group, these groups were not available into my group table. So these two records were pushed into the group table, right? But if we do not have this coalesce in place, then all of the groups will be pushed into our group table and we'll see that data. Because of this coalesce, we are not getting a new record created into that because we already have those group names created into our table. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, any question in here?
Just on scheduling, actually, how we can schedule this on the transform map. Okay, we can.
Scheduling is easy. You can come here and you just have to click on schedule data imports. So your data imports are, will be listed here. So you just have to create a new schedule. So you'll come here, hit the new, and then you will choose the data source that you have. So like if you have to do LDAP users, you'll come here and push that LDAP users here. Name your schedule and daily at 00 hours or weekly or periodically, at a particular duration you can execute it. And you can save the schedule. So when you save the schedule, this becomes an unattended import, and that happens every time on a defined schedule that you put here.
Okay, that this system LDAP is like out of box features.
This, yes,
We
yes,
added something. Yeah.
yes. System
Okay.
LDAP is out.
So in case we need to do like a new integration or something, we need to add. We need to schedule and all these modules we need to create by our own. Or
No, these modules are available already. All you will have to do is to create a new server to identify what Active Directory you have to point to. Right? So you'll go ahead and create a new server. All your servers will be displayed here. For example, this is example LDAP server where we are connecting. Another one is Turasys LDAP server that we are using to connect to. And from there, we are fetching that record, of users and groups from the database, from the Active Directory database, right? So you don't have to create these modules and all. These modules are already created. You will have to use this. You will have to set your connections here by providing all those details the way we have done for import set. So consider this similar to import set. This is nothing new. This is nothing different. This is import set. This is an import set which uses a different protocol, LDAP protocol, to talk to your Active Directory. As against the JDBC protocol we were using to talk to our Oracle database or MySQL database or SQL Server database. Against to that, contrary to that, we are using LDAP protocol here to connect to Microsoft Active Directory. All right. So these modules are already created and available in here. You just need to configure these to use your Active Directory connection as a data source. Does that answer your question, Deepak?
Yeah, Rahul.
Okay. This is your LDAP log that prints all the error messages or information messages that you get in due course of connecting with your LDAP, LDAP Active Directory. And you can always come back here and try and find out what happened while you were making this transaction, etc. Right? This is some certificate, X.509 certificate. So from security related certificate, if at some times your Active Directory administrators would require some sort of certificate to be installed in doing those transactions, in those cases you would use that. I do not have that scenario where I can generate and show that X509 certificate, so I'm leaving it, but this is from the security perspective of that. System properties LDAP is where you can set some of the properties for the LDAP setup that you are doing. Right? For example, use LDAP for password authentication. Yes. Automatically import users from LDAP servers if the user is not present in the sysuser table. Yes. Use paging if supported by LDAP server to retrieve results. Yes. And the amount of time the listener will wait for a response from the LDAP server. After this amount of time, the listener will process any notification it has received and will reissue the reissue the listen request to the server. The value should be specified in minutes, so 5 minutes. So these few basic properties you are, able to set up into the LDAP properties. The same thing, once you set your LDAP server here in the import set, when you come here in the data sources, now you can see your two data sources available in here. So that system LDAP is related to your import set. So when we did set up there, these two records are getting displayed here as well, because in the system LDAP as well, we were referring to the data sources table. Right. So we went ahead and we enabled the two records into the data sources table, records for Turasys LDAP groups and Turasys LDAP users. So all those information will be displayed in here. Anything on this?
Rahul, I'm having small confusion on this.
Sure.
If there is an existing group in ServiceNow and the coalesce option is on, you said like those users who are in that particular group in LDAP won't be added to this, right?
No, users are already added. See, there are two tables, right? Users table and groups table. So for us to add any user to any group here, first of all, we have to create that user into the record, right? User into the Active Directory. So users are the basic entity which gets created in here, and then we go ahead and add those users into this group. Let's say now if I want to add Vinod to our service desk, so I'll go here, check names, add Vinod to the group. But before we added Vinod into service desk, we must create that user, right? So users data always comes, and users data will come into the user table. The second thing is the groups table, right? In the groups table, what we have done is we have applied the coalesce property from the group name, right? And the group name
Yeah.
already exists here. The service desk exists here into our ServiceNow group table. That is the reason that group is not getting pushed here into this table, right? The software group or hardware group, etc. Because we already have that group available in here. So what it does is, but the coalesce is something which says that, hey, if the record is available, then we are not going to insert it. Rather than that, we are going to update it. That's the reason you see that Vinod Kumar is now coming here into this software group, right? Because it did not create a new software group into the table, but it did push all the related group members from the software group into Active Directory to this group here, right? So we had Beth Angling, Fred Luddy, David Liu, ITIL user, Don Woodlife. Now the addition is Vinod Kumar, and this would, if you click on this would come from the Turasys domain. See, this is the user from my Active Directory. This was pushed into my service software group that we have here. Similarly, if I go into hardware group, my hardware user should also be pushed here into this one. See, Rahul, Vinod, these two have come from the hardware group into Active Directory right into this. If I open Rahul, this is my domain user, Turasys.com, right? And this is the user ID that I created, Rakesh, and this is getting pushed into the hardware group as well. It is not creating a new group per se into the table, but it is using the existing groups and associating those group members into this. That is all it is doing.
Yeah. Okay, Rahul.
Anything else, Faz or Vinod or Shashi?
No, Rahul. Good. Rahul, I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to know the real scenario. In the real scenario, I mean, whatever the user will be created in the Active Directory, it will be automatically created here, right?
Right.
Or it is like that. It is like vice versa is also there.
Yes. Vice versa is also there, but it is in a different way. Not exactly using import sets and all. Let me explain
Okay,
that to you.
good. Okay, sure.
So, what happens when we have to create a user into our Active Directory? What do we have to do? We have to come to this Active Directory console. If we are using this raw console, we have to come to this console, right click, new and user to bring that user in here, right? So if somebody who is trying to create a user into our Active Directory remotely, he will have to perform the same function here into this one. But that cannot be done using import sets. Import sets are not intended to control remote environments, right? Why remote? Because now we are talking about creating a record into Active Directory right from the ServiceNow environment, right? The correct word for this type of thing is known as orchestration. So if we come here and if I go and say that, hey, this is your Active Directory that we have, right? So this is your Active Directory, for example. Let's say if I say that, let me name it as Turasys Active Directory. And this is my ServiceNow environment. So what we were able to do is, let's say if I put this import set here, so using this import set, we were able to push this data into our environment. So we were able to send the Active Directory information into import set, and this import set was able to send this information into our table here, into, let's say, the target tables that we had here. Okay, so this is our, assuming that this is our ServiceNow user or group table. So we were able to push data here into this. Now what you are saying is there a way that you can create something here in ServiceNow, possibly a form or something? Let me place this here. Just a moment. So let's say I create a form here, some sort of form, and on this form I want to provide the usernames and all. So let's say I go here and create this. This is my username, and similarly I have my email and I have the user password that we are creating. Password, and this is email. And then let's say I have a submit button as well, right? And this submit button is allowing me to submit my record from ServiceNow to set this username and password for a user into Active Directory. This is what you intend, Faz, right?
Yes, sir.
So this is kind of a outgoing request that you want to push into your Active Directory. So we are reversing the way that we did for importing data. Now we are trying to push that into our Active Directory. But this is not done directly. Remember when we were talking about workflows, we talked about some of the activities in the workflow, and we used the word orchestration to define those kind of stuffs. So what we will have to do is we will have to use orchestration to actually get this thing done. So let me put something here. Let's say we name it as orchestration activities using workflow. Right. So wherever I have created this form, let's say if a custom application has been created, I have created a form. On that, what I'll do is I'll go ahead to support that form. I'll create a workflow and place it here. And that workflow, within that workflow, I'll have my orchestration plugin enabled, right? And when I have my orchestration plugin enabled, within that orchestration plugin, we have some activities for our Active Directory setup as well. So let me see if that is available in here. Orchestration looks like we have here. Workflow editor. So what would happen is now you will have a workflow in place, and within that orchestration activity using workflow is available. So that activity that you have into this orchestration plugin is capable of talking to Active Directory. And then within those activities that we have for orchestration, you have functions of creating users and groups, right? So you will call those functions here. Packs. This is Active Directory. See? ServiceNow Active Directory. And what do we have here? First function is add user to group v1, right? create any AD object. See this item? Let me show this here. Create AD object. So maybe we can use this to create a AD object. Object could be user. Enable AD user account, disable AD user account, query AD to get data. Is AD account logged? Some of the activities are here which are helping you out in doing some of the AD related functions that you are requiring to, you know, create into your workflows, right? So what we are doing now is using workflow and Active Directory activities that are available into the system. We are trying to push that data into Active Directory, but not using import set. Import set has this word of import, which is for importing data only, not exporting it or pushing data into another environment. This is just for importing. So this is a one-way connection that you are seeing. But using this orchestration, you may have this two-way connection as well. So you can get data, you can set data, you can do both using this orchestration plugin. But this is kind of a event-based transaction that you will be doing, event-based, transaction-based. So you will have a workflow in place, you will have a form in place, you will do some operations. Let's say I create a user in here and then send it for my manager's approval. So once my manager approves it, then only I'll create that user into my Active Directory, right? So all of these things that we are talking about will be there into my application and into my application workflow, wherein it will wait for my manager to approve this request. Until then it will hold that request and not push that into the Active Directory. But the moment I get that approval, this will go ahead and set that user into the Active Directory. And in the very next import, the user that we have created into the Active Directory should also be there into the import set that we have created. Make sense?
Yes, sir.
I'll try and create one sample for connecting to Active Directory and get that for you. Show that how we can create using a form and a workflow using orchestration. We can push data into Active Directory. We'll try
Yeah,
and do that.
even we can create a catalog item and use that for this.
Yes, no problem. Yes, we can do that. Using a service catalog item, you can go ahead and uh, have one catalog item maintained into the service catalog where you will see that create new user into Active Directory or something like that, and you will go through the service catalog workflow, and in the workflow you will have these kind of orchestration activity included into that, and when approvals are met, you will actually go ahead and create that. So it doesn't matter if you are using catalog item, it doesn't matter if you are using a custom application, the core principle of creating users into Active Directory will remain same.
Yeah, okay.
Any other question around this Active Directory? All right.
Rahul Vinod.
Mm-hmm.
If the users are deactivated from the LDAP server, will it get deactivated in ServiceNow as well?
Yes. Now, these are the things that come as part of the transformation map, right? Now, see, when we created this LDAP and when we were browsing through it, I showed you that there's plenty of information that comes in. So let's say if I am trying to browse it here. So LDAP contains a lot of information into it for any user. Let's say I go here in LDAP, expand the users node, and I go for one user, let's say Vinod, right? When I created this user Vinod, all I provided was a few information, the first name, last name, email ID, user ID, and the password. That's it. But when we come back here and click on Vinod, we see a lot of information in the Vinod's account. All of those information, see, given name, logon count, member of, object category, object class, object sys ID, something like that, right? Now, are we keeping all these information into our user table? No, we are not doing that. If we go here into the data source, if you open this data source here and go into the transformation map, what all we are keeping into our tables is just these 7 columns, right? Username, email, location, source, first name, last name, title. Nothing else, right? So if you are going back into your, let's say if I go here into my LDAP server again, and there would be an active deactive field into our Active Directory. If we go ahead and map that as well into our transformation map, then it is going to preserve the active deactive state of that user. Otherwise, right now what we are doing is we are not preserving that into our transactions that we are doing, because we only are mapping the 7 fields that we have mapped into our transformation map, right? But if you go here into this, we know there would be some active field. Mhm. If we come here and disable Vinod's account and go back, there will be some attribute. I don't know the attribute name. Environment not set. Missing server URL. Browse. We can Google it and find out what attribute is there which disables the account from the AD perspective. Let's find out if we have something here.
Now there's something called 514 just below it. Yeah, account control, user account control.
This one? This code? Maybe this is the one. Let's verify that.
Yeah, it says 512 is enabled, 514 is disabled.
Yes, so maybe we can use this one into our transformation map. Thank you for that, Shashi. So if you, yeah, this is disabled account 514. So Vinod, in the transformation map where you have a script, you can go ahead and check for this one, user account control 514. If it is disabled, you can go ahead and in the user table, which is sys_user table, you will go ahead and set active field as false. So this will be done using the script. So let's say this. So this active field is checked right now, but if you put that into your script, let's say this is your transformation map, and this is user import. So if in the same script, let's say if I do this, if source dot user account control, whatever the field name was, u underscore user account control equals 514, then what we can do is we can go ahead and do target dot active equals false. Will that work for you, Vinod? I just needed to find out what field is there into the Active Directory attributes, which is providing you that information that the count is disabled into that. And thank you, Shashi, for this information. I didn't know that. So this information, if you have it, you can put that into the script and set target active false. This will do the trick. Okay?
Yeah. Okay, Rahul. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you. And I'll try and set that orchestration workflow for you, and we'll show you sometimes how to push data into Active Directory from our custom application or service catalog application.